Yeah. All right, you're up and going. Karen, can you hear us okay?
All right, I will open this audit committee regular meeting June 4th, 2025 at 2 p.m. And it looks like citizens to be heard is on the agenda here, but there's no one present in the lobby. It does look like there's a window open. Is that somebody online?
That's Dana. Me, Dana, and Karen.
Okay, so nobody online either for citizens to be heard. We'll skip that portion.
Want to say who's present, Bill?
Yeah, present are Commissioner Hadler, Commissioner Martinez, myself, Commissioner Winfield, with Karen Curtin from Forvis, and our Administrator Mark Tyner and Vice Administrator.
Sure.
Quinn Hall.
Did you get a promotion, Quinn?
No, I forgot what it's called.
Look out for the old time.
Okay, and no citizens to be heard. We'll call a meeting to order and start off with our general business action items here. Number one is approval of the minutes from May 8th. Mr. Hadler.
Motion to approve minutes from the May 8th committee meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes. We will move on to number two. Our internal audit report from EFG. Are they going to be present, or are we just doing this self-guided tour?
Yes.
Here? Okay. Let me get that pulled up. So just a real quick introduction and summary. I'll just read through this. If anybody has comments, feel free to add them. The audit committee requested review of the airport accounts from 2024 audit report. In the 2023 report, Director Holland expressed concern regarding the usage of airport funds as follows. Grant assurances, the director is concerned about funds received from the airport during COVID years. All revenue generated by airport needs to go back to the airport. Between 2020 and 2022, CARES, CURSA, ARPA grants provided approximately $1 million, which was mainly used for payroll, debt service, operations, maintenance, and some minor projects. The director is concerned that the operating income during those years or the grant funds were used somewhere else. There should be a fund balance available for future projects. She is worried about reporting to the FAA that all grants and revenues from the airport have stayed with the airport. This report summarizes the review of the airport funds from 2019 to 2024. In summary, it appears all funds at the airport have been spent on airport activities. The methodology, thank you. I was going to blow that all out. The methodology utilized to draw this conclusion was to compare all revenues received against expenditures made. Revenues included the one-time grants made during the COVID financial crisis. Over this 6-year period, expenditures made were $28 million, which was in excess of revenues received, which was $25.6 million. This indicates the airport revenues were used toward the airport. Positive balance would have indicated the opposite conclusion. Conclusion, I'm just going to go to the bottom here. Based upon this analysis of the airport related funds, expenditures exceeded revenues by $2.2 million. Fund balances account for only $73,809 of those funds. It appears from this review that all airport revenues, including grants, were spent on airport activities. I will say that's the end of the report from EFG here for the internal audit. Then anyone's feel free to chime in as they wish, but I do know that our clerk auditor has mentioned that there's approximately $1.1 million that needed to go back to the airport fund that he had found. And
It's
so,
LIHTC, right?
what's
Is
that?
that LIHTC funds?
No, the clerk auditor is stating the opposite of what this
Oh.
internal audit review says. And so he, at one point, and I have it in an email from clerk auditor Wojtek, there was 1.1 million, and he has since downgraded that and does not have a final number, but thinks it's in the range of 600,000, which also suggests that maybe there's still some definite investigation that needs to go on. That seems to be a moving target, and I think that considering we're moving on to a different internal auditor in the future, why this would probably be one of the reasons that would support doing so.
So would we want that new internal auditor to open this, look at the discrepancies?
Well, and Gabe, I had sent an email to have that on this agenda with Gabe, and he's not present, and so it didn't end up on the agenda.
Okay.
So I think that that's a discussion for the next
Right.
meeting, and then I would hope that maybe as we're discussing here, that the next agenda would have an introduction and have the new auditor present, and as well as maybe Mr. Wojtek could have a finalized number for us by then, in his opinion, so that we've got something to work with. I just find it a little bit concerning that this auditor didn't really do any more than look at the income and the outgo and determine that everything was fine.
That's what it looked like to me too, for sure.
So I'm hopeful that maybe we can include that as one of the projects for the new internal auditor, and I would say that we probably need to make that an action item to give the new internal auditor direction after.
EFG is Cody, right?
It is.
Okay.
And so internal auditor, what would we call that? An introduction and then an action item on giving the internal auditor some direction. Karen, do you have any suggestions or thoughts on that?
Well, I'm looking at the page of the internal audit that details the revenue and expenditures from 2019 to 2024. It looks like those funds came in, oh, I see on line 50, account 56, 3,300, right? Grant revenues.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah, grant revenues that total 19 million in expenditures, a total of 25 in revenues and 27 in expenditures. Do we know why the person who do we know why Director Howland expressed concerns specifically? I mean, was there a particular year or were there transfers out that were of concern?
She started that discussion in a board meeting and then I believe brought it to the full commission that she was concerned that when we were receiving CARES, CURSA, and ARPA funds, that money was moved from the airport because they weren't needed at the airport.
Okay.
And was my involvement in it. And then at the audit committee, we recommended that the internal auditor look into that.
I would have thought if there was money moved out of the airport fund, it would be shown as a transfer out. And there is no transfer out shown. The 87,742 in 2023 was a transfer in. So I'm making the assumption that everything that is a positive number on that line is a transfer in. If there was a transfer out, it's not noted in this report. I'm not sure where the money could have gone.
Well, I think the fact that our clerk auditor has even raised the awareness that there's some money that needs to be transferred back, I guess.
And there's also, oh, go ahead. I do have one question though. At some point, I believe in our financials, we switched from moving from transfers to contributions. And so when we look at the, your budget, you'll see contributions as its own little subcategory right there. Do you know about what year that we made that switch? I think that was 22 is when I was looking over it last, to where you don't see transfers anymore. Now you see it as contributions. And maybe that's why, because it's in a separate category inside of the budget. When you look at it, that's why we're not seeing it right here. All you see is revenues and expenditures, and we're not seeing that separate category, which would have been contributions.
I see that in the 23 ACFR, contributions is listed as a revenue item, not an expenditure item. So I'm sort of back to the same big picture concept. I believe there's concern that an expenditure was created to transfer money out of this fund that should have been in this fund.
Yep.
So I'm not clear on where that would have been categorized had it not been in transfers out.
No, I would have thought we'd have seen some actual financials included in this internal audit report for these years.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't seem like much information here to me. I'm certainly not a financial guru, but
It seems pretty skinny to me too. I don't know whether that's par for the course or if it's.
pretty skinny. So at this point, I don't think that there's a whole lot of value in continuing to go over this until we get a chance to have our clerk auditor delve into it, as well as the new internal auditor.
Mm-hmm. And I would think that the numbers should agree
Yeah,
or reconcile to what's in the audited financial statements, which these at first glance do not. In 2023, this shows revenue of $2,088,000. And in the ACFR, this is for the Canyonlands Airport Capital Projects Fund. It's 1,445,882. So perhaps I'm not sure if there is another fund that is wrapping up into this internal audit report, perhaps, that is accounting for that difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So I can't reconcile that. The only number I could reconcile in 23 was the transfer in of 87,742, which says transfer in for debt service.
yeah, I mean, by the way I read his report here, we've subsidized the airport to the tune of 2.3 or 400,000, $2.2 million. So
Oh, I think I see what might be happening. The accounts that start with 56 dash are the Canyonlands Airport funds. The accounts that start with 10s and 22, that is a different fund. So I'm not sure if the question was specific to the Canyonlands Airport. It looks like there's airport revenues and expenditures that is recorded across multiple funds. Perhaps Canyonlands Airport Capital Projects is just one portion
possibly.
of the total airport picture, so to speak. Yeah, that must be what's happening.
Okay, again, I'm gonna suggest we move this on to the next meeting with a couple of action items related to it. Usually we have the internal auditor look at different departments as well. So I'm just wondering if we want to have other business lined up for him. When I say him, it might not be him, for them to do on top of the airport, because I think in the past, when it was Kevin and I think Mary, the first year they did like 4 departments. They went through and
It's kind of revolving departments.
yeah, kind of a revolving thing. So we would have to do a little bit of research to see if there are departments that are due.
Didn't we talk about that at our first meeting of the year? We talked about which departments would be up.
Yeah, one of them was gonna be GCAT, but
We can move discussion item number 6 up as well if you guys want. Because that tags right in with this as well.
what's discussion item? Discussion of accounts 47 and 23. I mean, it is something that we could include the internal auditor in as well. And we don't have Gabe here to have that full discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I thought something would have been loaded as he just got through coming up with this conclusion for our last meeting. Where he came up with the sum of 165, I believe it was, that was TRT sitting inside of Fund 47. And then I just did a quick little bit of math myself, looking back at 2023 right here. And I questioned that right there. So when I looked at contributions right here, we got 567,000 that was in 2022 that came in. And that was coming from the Rec Film and Convention right here, Fund 23. And that came in 2 separate transactions. One was for $400,000 and the other was for $167,000. So one was for salaries right there and the other one was for responsible rec, making the 567. When I then went and looked at the actual expenditures on that account right there for 2022, you can see, like, you look at salaries, you got 293, 254. And as you move down, let's see if we can find it here. One second, I should have highlighted it so I could find it. There was a balance, it was right around $300,000 is what the balance is. And so I'm just wondering, and then as I looked forward from that, the expenditures were underneath what was budgeted for the entire year. So I don't know how we went from having a budget of 300, or basically a reserve of 300,000 back in 2022. And then moving forward, that's always been in the negative. Basically, we've budgeted more than we've actually spent. And that we come up with a balance of 165 at the end. So I was really hoping to be able to see that today and see where that math was at. So I think that would be something I'd like to add in as well for the auditor to look at.
So then I would say we have separate.
Here it is, yeah, Fund 47,
List for
4520, 643 Responsible Rec Program. Here's the 400,000 that's transferred in. And then right here, the actuals that was spent was 86,000, right? So that right there said that there was at least a balance of 300 and some change sitting inside there in 2022. And as
This
that
is
time,
all in the GCAT.
this is in the Fund 47 right here. So, and that started in 2022. And if I follow that same pattern moving forward from 2022 all the way to today, we still see that there is more fund that's being inside, or there's more TRT funds that are sitting inside there than are being spent. So I just was trying to figure out how we came up with the 165,000. If that makes sense. I don't know if anyone followed that.
I kind of followed it. I definitely wish that Gabe was here.
I would have uploaded these documents right here, but I thought we were going to have something inside here.
Is Fund 23 just Rec Film and Convention, or is it Rec Film Convention and standard promotion?
It's both, but here, look, it'll be easier to show you right here. So here it comes out of the budget right here.
But
So here's
we clearly have
here's
2
Fund
items
3 right
for the
there.
internal.
So here's Rec Film and Conventions right here. And there's your
delve into the
ambassadors of 167,
airport
and then this
deeper.
4,000.
Well, extremely deep.
So there's the transfer going in.
Shallow dive. And then the same with these issues regarding TRT funds and
This is the contribution right here. So you take those two together,
With,
contribution of 567.
Right.
Coming in right there. And then as you
time frame moving forward here with opening up our budget and
salaries, you know, we can go through the salaries, but I just didn't even look at that part.
correct some of these, I would think.
400,000,
Need to
100,000, and
schedule
we actually spent
soon
6,000
another internal audit.
right there, so that's
Another
300,000.
Audit committee meeting, not internal.
That's a 300,000, so I was just trying to figure out, and that kind of continues, that pattern right there continues from 22 up through 25.
After
I'm sorry, 224. And so I'm just trying to figure out how we came up with the 165,000 last night right there.
I definitely think we need to look into that, Brian. We're adding it to the list of duties. I just mentioned to Mark and I'll repeat it. But I think that we need to schedule another audit committee meeting and have our new internal auditor present, and that we should probably do so quicker than a month.
I'm gonna be out of town from the 24th to the 16th.
24th through the 16th.
Yeah, I'm gonna be back east, various places. I may be able to zoom in during that time, but I may not. We're gonna be.
Well, and I guess what my thoughts are is that we're gonna be opening the budget.
Do you wanna?
We would want some of this information is gonna help us, I would think, at least specifically in reference to what he's working on for this budget process with Gabe. What were you?
I was thinking, I think,
When
how
is,
how about scheduling it right after I get back on the third week of July? A lot of people are generally gone during July across all departments traditionally.
Our meetings are the 1st and 15th in July. Commission meetings.
Right.
And so you're gonna be out of town for.
Yeah, I'll zoom in. I'll make sure I can zoom in for those. We're gonna be traveling around a little bit, and then we're gonna be at my grandparents' cabin, which is kind of marginal communication.
When will you be back? And
I'll be back on, I believe, I'd have to check my wife. I believe we're coming back on I think the 16th is the day we're coming back.
right, that's a Wednesday.
Yeah, right. That or,
got us, maybe someone that might be able to hop in and just
Yeah.
this one meeting.
that's, I don't
I don't know if there's something that we could do that.
I would say that with, aren't we scheduling the budget public hearing the 1st of July? Wasn't that what Gabe recommended?
Yeah, it's supposed to be at that
That
first meeting in July, and then
what do you recommend?
we could adopt the second meeting in July, is what he said.
So I would say that
What
we
is-
try and find a stand-in for you, Jacques, or Chad, an opportunity that you could zoom in.
Right. The last week of June, we're gonna be traveling.
Do we have the name of the new internal auditor?
So I was gonna ask is when they're gonna be on board. I mean, we could do them before I leave, no problem. I'm around.
I'm trying to remember when he's on the blank.
The GPP?
That sounds right, but I didn't remember.
I believe it's GPP, Commissioner. I'll check.
And so maybe the thing to do then would be to reach out and see what schedule works for them and Karen, and then try and schedule hours around it.
And would that new, I would assume the new internal auditor would need probably a week or so to get up to speed, right?
I would think so.
Yeah,
Excuse me, I may have missed part of the discussion, but the county's year end is December 31, and you were discussing review of the budget. Is that review of where the budget stands for 2025, or are you discussing approving a budget for 2026?
We are discussing we're gonna be amending the budget, Karen.
Okay,
There have been multiple I don't know what you want to call them, maybe findings from the state audit report that we're still not in compliance with. Which is going to, well, I think currently it's got a several $1 million over budget, and that we're gonna have to open the budget up, amend it. Make some decisions on what we are going to do and not do moving forward.
Okay, amending the current year budget. We're not setting
Yes.
the budget for 6 months in advance.
Right, correct.
Okay, okay, thank you for that clarification.
That was my fault. I apologize.
No, not at all.
So I think we're done with item 2. Anybody have anything further?
Yeah, so to summarize that, we're gonna ask the new internal auditor to open that back up and look at it and potentially give us a more detailed review of those airports.
Both the airport and the Fund 47 and 40.
Right, so we're done with, or does that mean we're done with 2 and 6, or do we still have?
And then just one other thing on the Fund 47 and 23. Is I would like to see an actual breakdown of what each of those restricted funds are. So inside of Fund 23, there are 2 types of restricted funds. And I just would like to see what those exact types are, if they're rec film and convention, or if they are TRT promotion 2A1. And then for the Fund 47, I would like to see what the restricted funds are in that, if it's optional sales tax, or if there are grants inside of that.
Tell me those 2 fund numbers again.
Fund 47 and Fund 23.
Thank you.
And so then number 3 is an update on our external auditor RFP. Does he have anything there, gentlemen?
That was the one that was Larson last couple of years, right? On
Yes.
Hatterley, and we're moving away from the potentially, right?
Yes.
Right, okay.
I think, do we have an RFP out or we are?
It's not out yet.
We have a draft. Karen, are there any issues or high points you want to hit on that draft, or do we need any additional input to feel comfortable with that?
No, sir, I created the draft using the template of the RFP that was distributed requesting my services, audit committee assistance. I updated it to reflect language that would be pertinent for an external auditor. That is in section 2, which is in the scope of work. It includes uniform guidance, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 200, which commonly known as your single audit, and preparing draft financial statements for the county and attending meetings. When I prepared this, which was end of April, early May, it was under the assumption that it would be distributed on May 12th. And as I understand, it has not yet been distributed.
That's correct.
So we would just need to update the timeline, so that, obviously we roll it forward to dates that make sense. Do you know when you might be comfortable posting this, making this RFP available? Could it be Monday, for example?
Yeah, it could be.
If it were Monday and we rolled forward, I'm on page, do you all have that in front of you by any chance, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see it right there. So you're on the May 12th, 2025, RFP available for 2 prospective respondents.
Yes.
Okay,
And it was highlighted May 12th. So if we rolled it forward to June 9th, which would be Monday, then the deadline
Basically moving
most
it.
likely would be 3 weeks later, puts us at June 27th. An evaluation of proposals at the July Audit Committee meeting. Was it determined that there would be a July Audit Committee meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so whatever the date of that is, and then the contract awarded, you know, the next day, I assume, or within a couple of days of that. Because your fiscal year end, of course, is December, we're already well past when we think we should be doing the audit for last December, right? So I guess what I would say, I think it's important to get this document circulated and locate an auditor.
We need to move that timeline up a little bit.
I'm not sure how we can at this point without cutting into the time that we're letting firms respond. We currently have it at 3 weeks. I feel like that's a good timeline. My concern is if you tighten it up too much, you might be, limiting your option of respondents. Do we know when the July meeting date is, or a potential July meeting?
Yeah, right.
I believe that admin was gonna reach out to both yourself and the new internal auditor and find a schedule that work for the two of you, then something the rest of us can fit into.
Mhm.
Is that all right?
Absolutely. I could be available the 7th or 8th, the 4th of July week. I'll be at a conference and traveling. 4th of July is on a Friday. But the following Monday or Tuesday would be my first available dates in July that I'd be happy to join a meeting.
I think that would
And then you,
maybe
if that
better to
works.
zoom in would be those 2 dates too.
They would work.
I think it would, yeah. I think we're gonna be in a place where I'd have communication.
The 7th is great for me.
Is that a Monday?
The 8th is, a few that I've got, so the 7th is the most wide open for me.
I think that would,
Yeah,
I think,
before 4 o'clock for me on that.
Agreed, does the 7th before 4 also for me. I've got the airport board meeting.
All right, so we'll circle back up with the new internal auditor and
See if the 7th will
Yeah.
work.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll do a tentative 7th then, Karen.
Okay, then perhaps you could make the award on the 8th, which I guess would be, I'm not sure whose function that is, but I think a determination could be made on the 7th or, shortly thereafter, because you would have had time by then to evaluate the proposals, which I'm suggesting be due on June 27th, which is a Friday, which gives you 5 working days, well, 4, to look at the proposals.
yeah, Karen, the commission meets on the 15th, the 1st and 15th in July. So they should be able to, or could be able to address that at the second meeting in July.
Right, we would have to approve that contract in the commission meeting, so the 15th. And then they would be able to start their process immediately after.
I see. So the award date would be on the 15th.
Yes.
Yes.
Got it. I will make a note. I'll make that change and send that back. And then we want this audit firm to begin work.
Unless we got time short and had them, and had on the 31st
Right, but I think we want to leave that RFP open.
for that extra week.
I
if
think,
we needed that week, we could always, if we're all in favor of that, and then you could just, Bill could sign it, we just ratify it at the meeting. I don't think there'd be any disagreement as long as the 3 of us agreed, right?
Yeah, and Larson is still working on our 24 financials.
Okay,
So we're not in a time crunch.
Okay.
It'll be,
Yeah, there's
it'll be
probably-
next year.
I
Yes.
was under the misunderstanding that
Yes.
this was.
yeah, this is the externals.
This is external.
Right.
So yeah, they won't engage us fully until March of 26. I mean, there'll be some work, some homework beforehand, but
Well, I'm sorry, I may be confused here. This is for external audit services for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024 or 2025?
2025.
Yes.
25.
So that's where I was
Oh.
confused as
Well,
well.
there, yeah, that's,
Because she was talking earlier, she was talking about this as 2024. That's
yeah.
why I was.
And
thinking
Larson's
that-
is currently working on our 2024s.
Super. Okay, so we're ahead of the
That
game.
takes the pressure off of everybody on that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I apologize for that.
No,
Okay,
Thanks-
we're
thanks for
fine.
clarifying.
We've got plenty of time. Okay, so we don't need to have a constraint as to when the audit firm will begin work. I mean, it's clear
Right.
that
Yep.
we don't have to put in obviously a 25 date because they're auditing the end of 25. Okay, I will take out that sentence, which is on at the bottom of the introduction on page 2. I will take that one out, that sentence out.
Okay. And then moving on to item 4, we've really discussed that at length already. And that will be on our next meeting's agenda to give them final direction on where we want to go. I think that we've decided on 2 avenues, the one that Commissioner Martinez brought up and the airport, and we possibly need admin to look into some sort of a rotating on what departments would need to be audited next. I honestly have no clue or no memory of who the last ones were that were done, so,
we can make a list of them.
yeah. Okay. And then the last item on here,
Elected offices too, for example, the office of the
yep,
attorney or the assessor or the sheriff or
right, it's everybody,
Yeah.
every department,
Yeah,
so.
that's my understanding.
I want to say that it was the Gina's department was one of the last ones, but I honestly don't remember, so.
I think you're right.
All right, and then so the last item here then for discussion is an update on component units, and I know that both Mark and Quinn have been applying adequate pressure to get those in, and I think that it's working. I don't know if you've heard any negative out of that,
I
but
haven't heard, but we have received a couple of contacts after the second email just went out last week. That they're working on them. So we have got, the feedback that we've got have been positive and that they're trying to meet those
When was
deadlines.
the drop dead time for that?
July the 1st. Because we've requested it by June 1st, no later than June 30th. And there was one.
Who are we still waiting on?
There was one entity, we're waiting on everyone except, I believe there's 2 that have their financial statements in already. The rest we're waiting on. I think there's 5 or 6 that we're waiting on now.
So it's did Gwissa say they were in, right?
I don't know what,
Oh, one email.
where any of them are.
Yeah,
I don't know which 2 we have and which ones.
I know a couple of emails came through. I didn't, but
Yeah, and I've got the listing.
but we have rec, solid waste,
Mhm.
mosquito abatement. Is Thompson one of those?
Yes.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Thompson, I know was on the list.
Okay.
Could maybe we get an email with a fresh update and then we can, Jock and I both can put a little pressure on Thompson or if any of the others that we're.
Yeah, we have a Thompson meeting a week from today.
Yeah, I can do that.
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed. And
Yeah, because that's
what I'm putting the pressure on right now.
We
And I don't wanna,
definitely, yeah.
I know when I have a deadline, I always appreciate someone giving me those extra reminders.
Yeah, I can send an email out to Thompson today. So,
Okay, I think that's got us through our list of stuff here. Is there anything else that we want to add here?
I'd like to make a motion to go in closed session.
Okay, motion for a closed
Oh, and
session.
then for pending litigation.
Sure.
I believe this is when I should drop off. Just wanted to confirm.
No, Karen can stay on, right?
Yeah, no, as our advisor, Karen, you are able to stay on. What this means is we've got to get Dana to stop YouTube, and we would have to close the door from others coming in.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I second it.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, Karen, we will have you stay and we'll start the process here of getting compliant. Dana, are you able?
Talking pending litigation, should we have the attorney here?
I
I know he's in court.
Is he?
He is, yeah, I talked to him earlier too.
I have no idea.
Dana's taken care of us.
Okay.
We're not ready yet.
How many component units do we have total? Is it 7? Is it 6 or 7?
I thought it was 7.
7, okay.
Number, but you don't hold me to it.
It'd be nice to have a definitive list of all those so we could, various commissioner, whoever could help facilitate. Everyone,
There are 7 component units.
it is 7, okay.
Yes, sir.